it now, boom. Heads turn when I walk in the room. All eyes when I walk in the room. No lies when I walk in the room. I am the truth. Do it now, boom. Heads turn when I walk in the room. All eyes when I walk in the room. Just watch. Don't believe me, just watch. Don't believe me, just watch. Watch, 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 watch. Let me just watch. Watch, 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 watch. Don't believe me, just watch.
Hello, everyone. My name is Neil Patel, and today we're going to be talking about how AI is a tool, not a strategy, and the new marketing framework. This is one of my most interesting topics that I picked for this year to do a webinar on. And the reason being is we're starting to see a lot of companies use AI as a strategy. And then they come to us and they say, hey, why am I not getting results? Why isn't my revenue going up? Actually, we're seeing our costs go up because we're paying for all this AI stuff and we're not really seeing the results. And the main reason is we're seeing a lot of companies use AI as a strategy instead of a tool. So let's dive in. I'm Neil Patel. I'm the co-founder of NP Digital. And today we also have Nicole and Julie with us. Nicole, do you want to do a quick introduction? And then Julie, you can do one right after.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole Wiesa. I am a content strategy manager here at NP Digital. I've been in content strategy for about 10 years now, and I am primarily focused on fintech and highly regulated industries. And I'm excited to talk with you all today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Bolero. I'm a paid media manager here at NPSL and NP Digital, and I'm looking forward to talking with you guys today about this.
Awesome. So with NP Digital, many of you guys have seen this slide before. Work with a lot of big brands, have a ton of awards, quite a few employees in a lot of different countries. And it's because the results and more importantly, the strategy works. So today, when we break down the new framework that you should follow, the strategies that are driving results, keep in mind, we're using them for our customers and it's producing results. If you just want us to do everything for you, you can take out your phone, scan the QR code, fill out your information, and we can help you with strategy-led marketing. We can also help you with the execution and implementation. Or you can just go to npdigital.com where you can scan the QR code. And it doesn't matter what country you're in, what size business you are. We pretty much help companies of all sizes and businesses that are located anywhere. So when we think about AI, we're in the era of AI is everything. And there's so many tools. There's a lot of copycats and competitors. A lot of the LLMs are also releasing technology that makes it simpler for you to just use them instead of some of the tools. Automation has been faster than ever that we've ever seen. Every platform promises amazing results. Some of these platforms like code your own app in 5 minutes, right? It may not be a fully usable app that's going to get you the results you're looking for, but it definitely can kickstart you in 5 minutes. And most teams feel pressure to use everything and anything AI related because their CFOs are saying, hey, we're in this big AI boom. It can create tons of efficiencies. You don't need as many people in marketing, as much budget. Just go and use this technology. And I always love telling these CFOs, hey, you have a big accounting team. The AI technology has really changed the landscape. You don't need as many people. How about you just go use AI for everything in finance and just get rid of your whole team, right? I like spinning it back to them. And you quickly see that either they get irritated or they understand that, oh yeah, that's right. It's harder to do than what people actually think. But even though I'm saying, hey, AI isn't everything, it is amazing, valuable technology. It's going to become even more valuable in the future. But it's no longer edge. Everyone's using it. It's not maybe we should use it. It should be, you have to use it. But AI alone isn't going to get you the results you want. AI combined with humans is going to get you the results that you're looking for. And when you spend time on creating a right strategy and then have AI help you, you will see much better results. So the new approach to marketing, right? Strategy defines the direction. and AI accelerates the execution. That's what really adds value. But you still need humans to be part of both areas. And even AI can help you refine your strategy. It's not that it's not useful on strategy, it's more so you need AI and humans. We see this world as HAI, humans combined with AI.
So when people hear AI-centric marketing or using AI, it sounds progressive and fancy because AI still feels new. But with all early stages of something new, we do need to be aware of its pitfalls. So let's talk a little bit about that. So one of the most dangerous things about widespread AI adoption is that if you're overusing it or using it in the wrong way, you might not realize it because your performance won't drop right away. You might not see the results of that overuse immediately. Organizations' metrics can look stable at the surface, but slowly their brand is becoming forgettable because it's losing uniqueness. Like Neil said before, everyone's using it. So a lot of things are starting to look the same. AI is built on patterns. So when messaging and campaign execution starts to follow the same formula as everyone else, your competition shifts away from value and more just towards efficiency and time to market. Who's faster, who's cheaper, who's louder. So trust and recall from your audience are the first things to go when they start seeing that sameness everywhere. So by the time you see their performance drop from that, you've probably already had a brand differentiation problem for a little while. So to put it plainly, AI has kind of made it too easy to skip critical thinking and strategy. I've even seen it myself where it's just very easy to kind of skip over a harder process or something, it takes a lot of thinking time and just say, I just want AI to help me do this. It's really, really common. I think a lot of people have experienced that if you've ever used AI, especially now that we are trying to do things faster and stay up to speed with our competitors. And that execution is a lot cheaper and quicker with AI. But while that speed can be really beneficial to your teams, it can also be detrimental to your strategy because you are skipping over that step. You're not taking the time to really build that foundation. And we see that with audiences as well and consumers. Audiences are really good at spotting patterns. So as AI generated content becomes more common, it becomes easier to recognize. There's familiar phrasing, predictable structures, and things like that. So as soon as somebody latches on to that, they might lose trust. Things might start to feel impersonal. And that's when people start to disengage. We have data that shows this, and I'm sure you've all experienced it too through conversations you've had with other people or even posts online. One that I really like to point back to is that in the early adoption time of like ChatGPT, it really loves to overuse M dashes. And I remember seeing jokes all over like LinkedIn and online saying like, basically, if you ever used an M dash in your content, this was generated by AI, which is kind of a bummer because it can be a really powerful grammatical tool. But now it's kind of a thing where it's like, if you see it repetitively, your mind might immediately go to like, this is AI generated content and I'm not going to pay as much attention. So there are things and patterns like that that people will pick up on. So we just really have to be aware of all kinds of pitfalls like that, where we're having AI do too much for us and we're not thinking about it. So a question that we got from the audience prior to this webinar is it ever okay to publish straight up AI content if it's actually good and genuinely helpful, especially if it's only one part of a broader comprehensive content plan? The answer that you might not love and that's not straightforward is like, it kind of depends. Your best case is to always have some sort of human element. Now, you're thinking about what type of content you're creating, a social media post, a blog post, ad copy. While you can run it through AI, you absolutely just need to look at it and think about who your audience is. Does this reflect your brand? Things like that. And while it might be okay to post like chunks of content here and there that are straight from AI without any changes, if it looks good, you don't want to like write an entire blog post and just slap it up on your website without adding things to it. When you're sticking to content best practices, you're going to want to incorporate that thought leadership. You're going to want to incorporate data and statistics and things that you might not get from AI. So while I'll say it depends, I would say in general, you do want to make sure you're giving that human review and that critical thinking before you take something from AI and just paste it somewhere. So AI delivers essentially what it promises. Like we talked about earlier, it does increase efficiency. It does help you do things faster. You might be able to do things at a lower cost. It's great for implementing those tactics, but that efficiency alone doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see the results. Back to what Neil was saying at the beginning, we put all this time and emphasis into adopting these AI tools, but we're still not seeing the results. That's a very common pitfall that people can fall into because they're seeing their conversion stay flat or even decrease. They're seeing their revenue not following. And that's why more teams are feeling busier than ever, because they just think they need to dial in faster into AI and do more of it. They're not seeing that impact. So where we need to identify when AI usage is the appropriate time to use versus how to establish a strategy from the beginning. So again, this is because AI can't replace strategy by itself. It can definitely help it. It can be a great tool to help it, but it can't replace it. Teams need data and marketing expertise and critical thinking to solve more complex problems, like deeply understanding who your audience is and actually deciding which of those problems are worth solving, or choosing how to prioritize. And that's a big one because AI-centric teams are operating faster than ever and trying to do more than ever and throw the whole kitchen sink. But quantity doesn't equal quality. Where do your time and efforts make the most sense? Those are decisions that as a human team you need to make and then decide how to implement AI to solve that. If there were always a clear data-backed answer, we wouldn't call it a strategy, we would just call it execution. So what happens when AI goes live too soon? And there's a few examples that you've probably all seen that we could talk about. So first one is when AI overviews first went live with Google. There were definitely a lot of funny answers circling around the internet. So the example here is someone asking about cheese not sticking to their pizza, and the AI overview said, you can use a small amount of glue. Obviously, we know that's not okay. And, at best, it's funny, but at worst, it's actually dangerous, misleading, and just kind of putting a lot of liability out there, a lot of distrust for Google, which, is trying to be give you the best answers for things. So when the thing you see on top is absolutely incorrect, and we know that causes a lot of distrust and then force Google to then backtrack and then kind of have to come back and rebuild that trust in those AI overviews. Another problem that can happen is inherited bias. So Amazon built its own AI tool to accelerate their hiring processes, but it leaned way too heavily onto prior hiring patterns that they didn't really realize until the tool started deprioritizing resumes that gave any sort of indication the resume was from a woman. So when Amazon realized their tool was biased and inequitable, they scrapped it. So not only did they spend time and expenses on a flawed tool, this also hurt the brand reputation because now you have a lot of people that might be hesitant to apply because they think that they'll potentially be discriminatized against. And a more recent one is, speaking of brand reputation, Coca-Cola took a little bit of a brand hit with their ad campaign this last holiday season. Coca-Cola has been one of the strongest, most well-known brands globally for a very long time. And that brand strength has been based on really strong messaging and creative. So when they started leaning into, Gen AI for their ads too much, that really rubbed people the wrong way because they felt that they were losing kind of that authenticity and that creative value. So then, Coca-Cola then had to kind of backtrack after all this backlash about all this time and resources they put into this in AI-generated content. So the takeaway isn't necessarily to slow down on AI. It's just to lean back into your strategy, determine where your values are, what you want to accomplish, and then bring AI in for those tactics to let it do what it does best.
So, while as we know as marketers, AI has proven to be incredibly powerful for us, but as we've all seen, it can't decide what actually matters on its own. So let's think of AI as an assistant or a tool and dissect this new approach today. It's not best to give it full control over things like strategy, decision-making, and storytelling. And as you can see here on this graph, if you're on the left-hand side, this was AI-only written ad copy. It scored a very weak tone of voice score of 3.6, but when you put the human touch on the AI copy, that resulted in a much better score of 7.5. So from there, we'll talk about the 5 key pillars of the new marketing approach. So pillar 1 is the audience-centered strategy. Keeping your audience at the center of your human-led strategy is becoming more and more important in this AI-driven era. As Nicole said, audiences are picking up on AI-generated content more and more these days. So figuring out what your audience needs and building strategies around connecting to them through empathy and trust is still most important. And then that's where we really earn relevance through deep insight of your audience's motivations and behaviors. Without insight, metrics only show what happened and not why it happened. So by solely focusing on the data, teams often rush to optimize based on weak assumptions. Real insight comes from understanding audience intent, friction, and motivation. When audience leads, optimization becomes more purposeful. And this is where AI's role as a tool becomes clear and where human judgment still matters most. So AI excels at identifying patterns, as we all know, but meaning still requires human interpretation. A high bounce rate could mean you've got the wrong promise, you've got a slow page, or you're targeting the wrong audience. A low click-through rate could mean you have a weak hook or unclear offer. And an abandoned cart could mean that the user is experiencing pricing friction or shipping surprise. So AI can provide this data to us, but it's still up to humans to diagnose the cause. The lack of AI's interpretation becomes especially costly when messaging isn't structured appropriately. Without human-led messaging architecture, campaigns are built in isolation, hooks change without a clear reason, offers feel inconsistent across channels, and results are hard to diagnose. With architecture, the core narrative stays consistent while campaigns test angles within clear boundaries. Channels reinforce the same value propositions, and results are easier to interpret. AI performs best when operating inside a clear structure, not guessing at brand meaning or insight. This brings us to pillar 2, the layered use of AI. Different stages of marketing require different levels of automation. The mistake isn't using AI, it's using AI everywhere the same way. And as you can see on this graph for how much time marketers are spending on AI slop, many marketers report that they are spending over an hour each day filtering through messy, throwaway AI content. And that's 5 hours per week per employee that could be used on many other meaningful tasks. So AI is useful for speedy outputs, but it needs guardrails in order to be most effective. Avoid using AI on autopilot when assumptions haven't been fully validated, your messaging is still unclear, and performance signals haven't been fully vetted. Next, we'll cover pillar 3, which is creative that earns attention. Creative works when it's relevant and reflects how people actually think and feel. Formats change, algorithms change, but resonance does not. AI can assist with drafting, but developing creative that uses strong visual hooks and emotional storytelling still requires the human touch. So it's best not to rely on AI solely for creative creation. And this is where human intervention is truly necessary. AI can draft creative for you, but humans must differentiate using voice, context, and narrative. Voice creates that familiarity and signals who the message is for. Context determines how ideas land depending on timing, channels, and audiences. And narrative builds brand recognition and recall over time. Once the message is clear, the next question is where it should live, and that brings us to pillar 4, channel by channel intent focus. Using the human touch for creative differentiation becomes even more important when you're selecting the channels to include in your strategy. Each of the channels serve different purposes, and success comes when you match messaging to intent. So instead of attempting to hack the algorithm, focus on understanding user intent and what actually works for your audience. Meet people where they want to be met, right? So search is about problem solving, so provide helpful, specific content for search. Paid media supports evaluation, so provide clear value and proof. Social is all about discovery, so provide native, curiosity-driven ideas. Email reinforces trust, content builds credibility. You get the gist. AI can assist with optimizing delivery, but humans must align the channel, intent, messaging, and creative. And all of this ultimately leads us to pillar 5, conversion is the new king. In a world where gaining visibility is easier than ever, getting your audience to take action is where strategy proves its value. Attention alone isn't growth, and traffic only matters if it leads to action. This is where relevance, trust, and execution intersect, and where AI-only strategies fall apart. And this is also where AI can be incredibly effective when used correctly. AI highlights where users hesitate, stall, or drop off. CRO tools reveal what users actually do on the page. Conversion improves when insight informs decisions, not when automation replaces judgment.
So, how do we put this new approach into practice? This framework isn't necessarily about using less AI, it's about using it intentionally. So, really, when we want to start, we want to go back to those marketing foundations and then just use AI to enhance them. So, first, let's consider the marketing funnel. Funnels aren't just paths to conversion, they're paths to commitment and decisions. So, as the commitment increases to your brand, your messages might evolve, but the core promise should stay consistent to your overall strategy. And while messaging might reset at every stage, then the buyer might feel like they're starting over and that momentum disappears. So that's kind of the problem of not having that core strategy at each step of the funnel. People think they're starting over when they're seeing new things that aren't aligned back to a core message. So that's why building a strong strategy based on consistency is a critical step before bringing AI into the fold. And as you're building a strategy, early testing helps validate you're headed in the right direction. So remember that early performance signals matter than just having a polished execution that is perfect. Fast feedback reduces the cost of being wrong. Communities and short form platforms surface reactions quickly, so that can be a great way to test if you're headed in the right direction with your strategy before your team then decides to invest heavily in scaling. And once you begin to validate your strategy, that's when you can start to lean heavier into those additional AI tools and tactics to help support that overall strategy that then you've previously already validated is working with your audience. As you're testing performance signals, pay attention to what real people are discussing and asking online. That conversation really reveals what people actually care about. And there are so many tools and places that you can look for this. There's so many tools that are tracking those online conversations, whether it be through social media, whether it's through traditional Google searches or LLMs. You can get so much valuable insight from there before you start using tools to start generating content based on what you think you know. Pay attention to what people are actually talking about. Those questions, their objections, and pushback signal where they're thinking and where you might need to provide more clarity for them. That feedback sharpens positioning then before you lock it into a campaign. So once you understand your customers' needs and wants, you can give better data and inputs to your AI tools for implementation, like, for example, creating a custom GPT. Once you know what your audience wants, you can tell AI how to better understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and Nicole nails it right there. When we see companies fail using AI, it's usually two main areas. One of them is what Nicole mentioned, because the technology and the tools are great, but if you don't feed it not just the right information, but enough information, it's going to do a poor job in helping you execute. So data is really key, not just giving it accurate data, that's a necessity, but enough data. And people forget that if you have an amazing tool, but you guide it in the wrong direction, you're pretty much screwed. So you want to make sure you're not just feeding enough data, but you're feeding, or not just accurate data, but you also want to feed enough data and go above and beyond. And then when it starts rolling, just double check, because sometimes it interprets things a little bit off. So then when you just clarify to the AI, you're much more likely to get the output that you're looking for. And the second big mistake that we're seeing companies make, and this is why they're not getting much of an ROI, they don't keep in mind a simple concept called KPIs, key performance indicators. So whenever you're creating a marketing strategy and you're just like, all right, here's your goals. Okay, you have your goals. What is the overall purpose of doing this? Well, we want to grow revenue. We want to boost our conversions. We want to increase the lifetime value of our customers. We want to increase repeat purchases, right? You have some main metrics that you're trying to really achieve when you're creating a new marketing strategy. Now, a lot of people look at these metrics like, I want more visitors. Well, visitors are great, but more visitors doesn't necessarily mean more revenue, right? You want to think about the main metrics that the business is trying to impact and move. Now you got to start thinking about, you're using all this AI technology. How can you get this AI technology to impact the metrics that are most important to your business? Because if you do all this cool stuff using this technology for a month, 2 months, but it has no impact on the main metrics that matter to the business, yeah, you may have done some cool stuff or saved some time, but if you're not getting more of an ROI, you're taking that saved time and spending in other areas that are also not producing an ROI. So that time's not that valuable. And at the end of the day, what'd you do? You spent money paying for this technology and these tools. So you actually spent a lot of money and didn't impact anything. And that's what you have to keep in mind whenever you're creating a marketing strategy. What are your main KPIs, your key performance indicators that you're trying to move? And if the tools aren't directly helping you with those KPIs, you're probably not going to see the results you're looking for from AI.
Yeah, that really ties in well to this question that we got from the audience that I'll add on to a little bit here. But the question is, how often should I be updating my content to keep up with how quickly language and search behavior change, especially as new phrases and trends from social media and other media influence voice search and AI-driven answers? So talking back to data is your best friend here. We get this question a lot from a lot of clients because they're asking, they're seeing things are constantly changing and they kind of get stressed about like, how can I possibly keep up with these constant changes? And it can be really, really easy to fall into feeling like you need to be running on the hamster wheel, constantly creating new content or updating your content to reflect these changes. But I like to remind people that with all of these new types of search places to consider, like voice search and LLM results, really, if you are sticking to good, basic, traditional SEO, as you know it, general search, you're probably doing pretty well in these other avenues as well, because ultimately all of these tools are going to bring up results that ultimately people will trust and that are backed up by data. So that's doing things like integrating quotes from subject matter experts. If you're doing that, that's a great trust signal. Or maybe you're including data that you've, is proprietary to you or that you've gathered from a very relevant source. Those types of things that improve those trust is a really great foundation for your content right now, regardless of how things change. Now, that's not to say there aren't going to be some major changes in the future, but if you're sticking to those core foundations, you're going to be in a really good spot. And then the next best thing you can do is use some of those other tools to keep track of your metrics. And again, as what Neil was saying, think about what your KPIs are. How well is your content tracking against your KPIs? If you're seeing like that your conversions are way down, look into what pages that were top drivers for you before are now not doing that, and then focus on those. Or if you're really looking at impressions and traffic and that's dropping, look at what was typically your top performers, let's say 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and consider, is this seasonality or is this because I'm actually falling behind in just general content best practices? You can really use kind of like your top pages and your bottom pages to understand where your opportunities might be, and also make a decision and say, hey, maybe we're just experiencing some seasonal trends right now and that's why we're down. One thing I will call out from a big performance metric that we've seen with a lot of clients is as AI overviews are increasing, websites are getting less clicks because they're getting their answer more quickly in AIOs. So if you're focusing on content best practices, your content might also be more likely to show up in AI overview. So you should be tracking that metric as well, because just because you're not getting the clicks does not mean you're not necessarily getting the visibility. So there's a lot of factors there, but ultimately you just stick to your core best practice foundations and content for regular SEO, content development, and you're probably going to be in a good place.
Yeah, and one thing Nicole mentioned that you can use AI for, so you can take your Google Search Console data. You can end up looking at year over year, quarter over quarter, month over month, because you can have comparison dates when you're looking at the data. I believe it goes back 16 months or 18 months. I don't think it goes back years, but it's somewhere in that time frame. And you can actually see which pages, which keywords are getting more impressions or less impressions. How are your rankings doing? Are they staying steady or are they going down? How are your clicks doing? When you start looking at each of those metrics, and the reason I gave multiple metrics and not just one, clicks could be deceiving. You could be getting more impressions because of AI overviews, but then getting less clicks because people are getting the answer of like, how fast does a cheetah run, right? Call it 70 plus miles an hour, whatever it may be. So you can use AI to not just look at the data, but to notify you when there's any changes. Because when there's changes and you're seeing drops, that's a good time to potentially update your content. If you're seeing a drop in some of those main metrics, it usually means someone else created content or has content that's better than yours for that topic. And it's not always the case, but it is largely the case. And then you can start seeing, okay, who's above me now? Who's taking the impressions and the rankings? What are they doing differently with their content that we're not doing? And again, AI can help you with this, analyze that. And then you can figure out the gaps that you're missing and how you need to adjust and plug things in to be better. So you can do a lot of things when it comes to updating your content based on the data. And we prefer to do it that way versus having a general rule of thumb of the content needs to be updated every 6 months or year or 3 months. Because the reality is not all content needs to be updated. If the content was about how fast a cheetah runs, that kind of content has been consistent for over 10 years. I don't think in the last 10 years you would need really any updating. Now, it doesn't mean other pages on your website don't need updating. You need to pick and choose. Updating content for the sake of it is a waste of time, and it doesn't produce anything. Google and ChatGPT aren't like, oh, this one is updated last week, so let's show it first over the other ones that were updated 5 years ago, even though there's nothing that's changed about cheetahs over the last 5 years when it comes to their running ability. So you just got to think about it from a logical way, just like these algorithms think about things in a logical way.
So scaling your content doesn't necessarily come from more ideas. It comes from staying with the right ideas for a longer amount of time. Again, this is why a strong, consistent end-to-end strategy matters. You need a North Star. You need a core message that you can point all of your tactics back to. And that allows you to use the AI to develop outputs that are aligned with that overall strategy. And that's then how you compound your efficiency without fragmenting your brand. I think that's a lot of issue that a lot of brands are getting into right now is they're focusing on so many individual pieces and not tying that back to their original strategy. And then that's where like brand distrust might start to happen because you're seeing different messages at different stages and different places. So again, you're just putting the work in at the beginning is really what's going to save you time in the end. So even though you want to move quickly, if you take the time to do your research and build out your strategy at the forefront, you then can jump in and use those AI tools to help you then execute all of the individual tactics in a more efficient way that's actually going to then bring you results. And that's why AI works really well in the middle of the funnel, because AI works best after you've established that meaning and that North Star, not before it. So at the top of the funnel, people are forming first impressions. They're reacting emotionally, intuitively, and sometimes even subconsciously. So that's where the human judgment and context and your narrative really matter most. In the middle of the funnel, then things change a little bit. People aren't necessarily asking, do I like this? They're asking, is this right for me? And then they're starting to compare options and they're looking for best fit for them and they're looking for reassurance. And that's where AI can really add value. And it's not necessarily by shaping the message, it's by reinforcing it consistently through multiple touch points that are addressing, their objections, their questions that we were kind of talking about earlier in the presentation when we were talking about paying attention to conversations online and questions online. That's when you can pull in and start answering those things and help build that trust. And in this situation, AI is not replacing your strategy. It's helping protect your strategy and enhance your strategy. So there's quite for a long time been a very overwhelming number of marketing tools. And now we have AI tools on top of it. And then even those marketing tools that have AI components as part of it. So this chart is a really good reference point of where to start and what types of tools to focus on for various stages of campaign development. And that stage is an important consideration because different tools do different things for you, and you want to use different tools at different points of your campaign development. So you'll see, for example, that common LLMs are a great place to help you ideate. And remember that those tools help you develop and implement your strategy, not build the strategy for you. So pay attention to your goal and then choose a tool appropriately to help you enhance, again, that North Star that you determined at the beginning. So in practice, content starts small and tested where the feedback is fast. And once you see that what works, you build from there. AI helps you generate variations, test different things, and surface patterns. But ultimately, your customers will help give you that information that your team can then use to decide what signals matter and what aligns with your brand and what is worth scaling. While AI can help you, build out those things, you ultimately need to make the decisions of how to implement. So when you find winning content and winning strategies, you scale them and reinforce them to help you ultimately lead to a conversion. That AI will help accelerate the learning, but ultimately your team needs to help decide what's worth building next. So remember, as I've said multiple times, your AI does not replace your strategy or build your strategy for you. It helps build up to an initial tactic, help you implement quickly after you determine what is best for your team. Once you've tested and gotten those results, then you bring in AI to scale and help ultimately deliver you those results.
All right, now let's talk about competing in an AI world without losing the human edge. And we only have a few more slides, and then we'll jump into some Q&A. So first, when you think about what's happening right now with AI right now in a corporation is pretty much the baseline. Everyone should be using it. There's really no advantage from having AI tools because, again, everyone is using it. They're very affordable. Some are even free, which allows people to be more efficient, organizations to be more efficient, and figure out how to automate things. What we're seeing right now is the strategy and direction is really what sets companies apart. And really amazing creative that stands out is driving better conversions. And when we think about today's world, we're seeing people get a little bit less traffic. We're seeing not as many clicks and the rankings not produce what they were looking for. But a lot of that traffic doesn't necessarily drive revenue in the first place. You still want to optimize for your brand appearing. And in addition to optimize for your brand appearing, you need to make sure that it's helping you build trust by making sure you have your branding correctly on all the channels. So it's staying consistent. You're being authentic and not doing what Coca-Cola did there, because that can really help or that can really hurt your conversions. And then, of course, you need to look at the data and optimize for conversions. So many of you guys are seeing a drop in traffic. An example of a strategy that I would use is to see which pages have the biggest drop-offs throughout my conversion funnel or throughout my funnel. And when I see the pages that have the biggest drop-offs, those are the ones that I would potentially start off with first when it comes to improving conversion rates. So I would use tools like Crazy to see how people engage and interact with the page, where they're clicking, where they're not clicking, where they're getting stuck, right? A lot of those like rapid rage clicks, as we like calling them. It shows you where people are having issues. And then you can start surveying people on those pages to figure out what they're seeing that's an issue. You can start fixing some of those things, and you can run an A/B test to see if the changes helped improve the experience and maximize your conversion rates. In addition to that, you should talk to the people that are converting and figure out why did they convert. Because if you talk to 30, 40 of them, you'll start seeing patterns of the main reasons they converted. The main reasons is the content or the messaging you want to use within your copy, because that's what's resonating the most to people and getting to convert. So if you can adjust your copy to use the words that are pleasing people, you can get some of the non-converters to start converting. So a simple example for this is if you look at our npdigital.com website. Okay, so if you go to npdigital.com, I'm pulling it up. We were able to increase our conversion rates by roughly 30% for our agency site. And what we found is a lot of our old messaging would talk about award-winning agency. It would talk about how, we've helped companies grow their traffic a lot. And we were getting feedback by talking to people. Oh, we're hitting you up at NP Digital because we know you guys know how to do well on Google and ChatGPT. And this is when ChatGPT was newer. And they're like, we've read that a lot of it's similar to traditional SEO. So we adjusted our copy to, we make sure customers find you everywhere from Google to ChatGPT. Then we use the subheadline of, we help you show up everywhere customers are searching, swiping, scrolling, streaming, and shopping, right? That itself provided roughly a 30+% boost. And when we look at our conversions, if someone went and just copied that change, they probably wouldn't get a 30% boost. The reason we got a boost was people who were converting were coming to us for some of those main reasons because we were known, but it wasn't in our copy. So we were pretty much putting the copy at the forefront of what caused people to convert based on our reputation and what we were known for. So, and the reason I'm going very specific here with that is when you're thinking about conversions and your marketing strategy, it's not just about copying someone else. It's about understanding why customers are converting and why the customers who aren't converting are going away. And what you'll usually find is the customers who are converting for a few specific reasons, usually 1 to 3. And the customers who aren't converting they're looking for the same thing that the people who are converting are looking for. They just don't really understand that you may be doing those things or have those features or benefits. So adjusting your copy helps emphasize that, hey, you're at the right place, and then they're much more likely to convert. If you need help building a strategy-led AI accelerated marketing system, you can always take your phone, scan that QR code. It'll take you to NP Digital, fill out your information, and we can review your business, your current strategy. Doesn't cost anything. And then we can end up breaking down what we would do if we were in your shoes. And then if you want to work together, great. If not, take that information, run with it on your own. And I genuinely wish you the best of luck. All right, Colin, let's dive into some Q&A.
So the good news is we're not all going to be working for robots soon. That's one of the key takeaways from this presentation. Lots of really good questions, great stuff, Julie, Nicole, and Neil. So here's a pretty good one, Neil. Tough. Maybe you addressed it in a roundabout way a few slides back, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It's overwhelming, all of the AI tools that are out there. It seems like many of the tools we've been using for years now have AI features. Do you think it makes sense to stick with those same tools, wait until they provide the AI features that we probably need, or should we constantly be testing different tools to see what's best? Because that can be basically a full-time job, as there are so many of them. Any thoughts on that, Neil?
So my biggest thing when it comes to tools is if your current tools are doing what you need to, there's always a switching cost. Time to learn new tools is not just money. Internal resources. I recommend if your tools are doing what you're looking for, stick with them. If they're not doing what you're looking for and you want them to do a few other things, then go and consider looking for new tools. But everyone's including everything in their tools that's AI related these days. There's not really much of a differentiator between most tools out there, just being honest. The biggest differentiator is price. Now, the LLMs, of course, are different. If you're talking about Claude or ChatGPT, that's different. But the email marketing tools of the world, the SEO tools of the world, all their features are commoditized, and pretty much people have all of them.
Awesome. Over to Nicole. We have AI help with content topics. Then humans are picking what is best based on audience goals, brand, etc. Then AI helps draft either an outline or the draft itself. From there, our content team is spending a decent amount of time polishing it up. Do you think that's a good, sustainable process? That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. At a surface level, that is a pretty good process. You're using data that you have and information that you have upfront to help determine what topics you should be writing about, what your audience cares about. Bringing in AI at that point to kind of help you, like you said, determine potential topics based on that, and then outline is a great step. That's something that we actually do a lot too, to help scale, even at the agency, where we're maybe developing briefs and outlines based on all of that information first, because that information is really going to help you make good decisions. And then when you feed that information to an LLM, help give you a better output. So then at that point, if then you have a human reviewing it, making edits, removing any of those like AI cruxes, like that M-dash situation I talked about earlier, and then also integrating, unique information that's unique to you can help you elevate that even further, that a human copywriter can do, like implementing statistics and sourcing, which LLMs can do that too, but they need to be validated. So yeah, at a surface level, I think that is pretty good and sustainable, especially if it's working well for you. And if you see that your content is performing well and you're getting results that you're looking for, then absolutely, that is a pretty good situation and a great place, within your development process to be bringing in AI. So I would say, yeah, if that is sustainable working for you, keep doing it until your data says otherwise.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Because there was another question from an audience member about like, give me some examples of how you guys are using AI. And I think it addresses that too. So while we have you, Nicole, and maybe Neil can chime in too, do you think that traditional EAT principles, EEAT principles, still apply when trying to gain visibility in the LLMs? AI overviews are one thing, but I don't know or understand how ChatGPT and others work or what they actually care about. So are the EAT principles that we've been living by for Google like relevant to ChatGPT and all the others that are out there? Maybe Nicole, you first, and Neil can always pile on.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it's a great place to start. There are certain aspects of that LLMs might focus on a little bit more, but if you're sticking to traditional EEAT, and for anybody who on the webinar who might not know what that stands for, it's expertise, experience, authority, and trust. And those are the 4 pillars that Google kind of determines makes your content, good quality content. It's not a direct ranking factor, but it is how they determine what is good quality content. And that EAT is especially important for like brands that impact your lifestyle choices, your health, your money. So like health websites, financial websites, things like that. But it's relevant to all brands. So if you're sticking to those foundations and things that build those trust signals, like I've mentioned a few times, subject matter expert quotes, data, good UX, good imagery, things like that, that is going to help you with LLMs as well. Things that just provide valuable information to your audience. Like I said at the beginning, LLMs might have certain little things that it might pull out and prioritize a little bit more. For example, we were just talking with Writesonic, which is an AI visibility tool, and they told us that comparison charts, for example, so this versus that can really help with LLM visibility. So you might have little nuances like that, but a comparison chart is good user experience for any sort of content. So that's my long-winded way of saying, yes, like EAT is a really great way if you're already implementing that to help with the LLM visibility as well. But I'll let Neil chime in with additional information too.
No, you're spot on. You do need to keep in mind the algorithms for these LLMs are getting more complex. The last thing they want to do is give medical advice to someone from Neil Patel. I have no clue about anything medically related other than you should just eat healthy. In essence, I'm not a doctor. I'm a marketer. I'm an entrepreneur. And they want relevant people talking about relevant stuff, because if they don't, what's going to happen? People could potentially get hurt or misinformation, which hurts their income or their livelihood or their health, and they don't want that. So eat is extremely important.
Did you catch that? Eat healthy. All right, so over to Julie. So Julie, you touched on audiences. A user asked, what do you think about polling our audiences to determine how happy they are with the content we are providing, or even better, asking our audiences what content we should create in the first place? Like, is that maybe a good strategy since audiences are so important these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I think polling your audience is a great idea. It's always worth a test. That would help give you valuable insight into what matters to your audience and why. And it also would be an effective way to boost engagement on your page or posts. But I would say don't overlook the current engagement data that you're already seeing on your post, those likes, comments, and shares. If we're talking about social platforms, are already informing what your audiences are liking in terms of the content you're putting out and what they're probably wanting more of.
Good point. I will speak for NPD. I mean, we poll our client services representatives and our salespeople to see what current clients and prospects are actually asking for or asking us about. We also take a look at the engagement within our social spaces to really determine the webinars, for example, that we should be producing on a bi-weekly basis. So always a good idea to actually ask questions of your most important people, your clients or prospects. So thank you for that.
Definitely.
Let's see, what do we got here? Oh, Neil, I understand the POV that SEO is just shifting, but Google is now basically an answer engine, not a search engine. Do we just need to accept that, or is there any sort of way to get around that fact?
Just accept it.
Yeah.
Probably the shortest answer I've ever given on a
Yeah,
webinar.
for sure. And then let's see here. I'm just like, I don't want to ask the same questions twice. We got another one here. Julie, given AI overviews and everything going on with various LLMs, we've seen Neil kind of touched on this, but curious to get others' thoughts. We're seeing traffic basically declining at a rapid rate. Any CRO types of tips or tricks that can maybe help us get more out of the traffic that we are getting? Neil touched on this briefly. I mean, from a paid media perspective, I'm sure we're kind of like testing ad copy and descriptions within paid search to increase clicks. Any thoughts? And it could go to Nicole too. Like, how do we figure out ways to like get more conversions out of the traffic that we are getting, because the decrease has been pretty significant?
Yeah, I definitely agree with testing new ad copy, maybe testing specific or new landing pages if what you're currently trying or using isn't working the best. And Nicole, I'll let you add on in terms of CRO tips.
Yeah, for sure. Data is always going to probably point you in the right direction. So it will not hurt to test different types of landing pages. You can use various tools like Crazy Egg, for example, to be doing like heat mapping testing and see like, are people clicking on parts of your page that they think go somewhere and it doesn't, or are they not clicking on what you expect them to click on to make a conversion? That's ways that you can make your actual page design decisions on that, and even like conversion type copy, even testing like buy now versus learn more and things like that. So testing is never going to do you wrong. You'll learn a lot from testing. So that's definitely a tip to help convert once people are actually getting to your page. Some other things you can do is look into what are your top performing pages currently? What do those pages have that maybe other pages don't? That might help give you some insight into why certain pages are maybe not converting the way that you expect. And then the next thing I'll say is to consider that you have content at every stage of the funnel. Do you have that top funnel content that's helping kind of address the early questions and early information that your potential customer might have? Because you might have a type of business where they take a long time to make a decision. Like it's not necessarily like an e-commerce or something where, oh, I'm going to go probably purchase the shirt in the next day or two. Maybe it's something where they need a little more information. Do you have the information that answers their questions and their objections before they're ready to make that purchase? And that's where kind of really knowing your audience is really, really important, to understand what is it that helps them make those decisions, and do you have the content that helps answer those questions that then leads them to then make a purchase and make a conversion. So it's kind of loaded. There's a lot there, but there's a lot of different reasons why your conversion might be going down. So those are kind of some of the first things that I would look at if I were in that situation.
And a few other things that you can do: multiple payment options like PayPal, Google Pay, Apple Pay. We usually see help. Everyone already knows the less form fields you have, the better. But what a lot of people don't run a test for is break your form fields up into multiple steps or pages. We find that to tend to boost conversions, because if someone puts in their name and email on the first step, it's less committal. And then they're much more likely to just finish out the rest of the form fields, usually by somewhere around 10%. The other thing is trust stuff, can't hurt. Look at what's above the fold. So for example, like with your pricing pages, like Crazy Egg will give you a scroll map to show you how far people are going. You have CTAs and the main things that you're pitching within your pricing pages, your products, whatever it may be. If you're seeing that people are only scrolling, toward 1/4 down the page, or 80% only stay in the top 1/4. That means if your call to action, everything else is in the bottom half, majority, only 20% are roughly seeing it. So then you can start moving around elements. That is really helpful and useful, but not too many people test that for some reason.
Yeah. ABT, always be testing. So one last question. Nicole, what's your dog's name?
My dog's name is Blake. He's a yellow lab. He will be 11 in a couple weeks, but he's still got a crazy amount of energy. And I did see that he was bopping around behind me while I was on this call, and fortunately kept quiet. But I'm glad someone saw him and wanted to ask.
Cool. Well, everyone, thank you for attending. If you need help with your marketing, check us out at npdigital.com. We really look forward to working with you guys.
Thanks, everybody.